kind of modern introduction of gear and techniques, maybe most notably like knee pads, grippy knee pads and knee bars, something that you're incredibly skilled at and obviously takes skill because I cannot hold a knee bar, for the life of me. But if a first ascensionist put up a route in a grade not employing that gear or that technique, should it be repeated in that manner, or should the grade change if there's a significant rest that's found, for example, by using a knee pad when one didn't exist 20 years ago?
Uh, it depends. I think if you climb it with a knee pad and it feels much easier, you should go for a different grade. Uh, but in general, I don't think there should be a double grade knee pad or no knee pad, because in most of the cases you can still do a knee bar with no knee pad. But in general, in limestone, it's just not fun. It's horrible.
Right.
And it's not really. So, for example, I climbed for most of my life without knee pads. And yes, 15 years ago, I was definitely not as good knee bar climber as I'm today, but I was pretty good and I was placing a lot of knee bars. And I was either climbing with jeans or I was climbing with short pants, and I would spend like weeks before making a trip to like Tufa limestone, like sandpapering my thighs and like really taking the best care that I could to have like a good skin. And then trying a project, all I was thinking about hanging in a knee bar, like should I really go for it and like bruise my skin on the thighs in until I'm bleeding and risking that if I fall off, I might not be able to knee bar for another week? Or should I maybe like just stay a little bit, save my skin for the next try? It was horrible. Like I hated it. The interaction of knee pads is great because every single try you can go for it and you don't have to think about it. But attention, it's the same like climbing cracks with gloves or not. If you spend 2 months in Rodear knee barring every single day, you develop a callus on the thigh. And then you can almost knee bar online on Tufas as good
Wow.
as with a knee pads. So the on limestone for me the debate between knee pad or no knee pad, because doesn't really make so much sense, because then is it with callus or no callus, like how do
Right.
you.
Are calluses aid?
And those are the topics that nobody really discuss. That's a big problem, because then the question would be more like, do you just on purpose skip that knee bar or not? But it's the same question, do you on purpose skip this heel
Right.
hook or not? So everybody finds like skipping a heel hook if it's there, finds it ridiculous. But in case of knee bar, it's the same. There are other cases like the knee bar in Hubble, for example. That is very technical knee bar, and if you don't have the rubber on your knee, you don't take any advantage about it. So there, two grades make sense. Like Flatanger or some of the sandstone climbing areas where it's more like knee scums. Yes, there are many knee bars that just basically don't work with without a knee pad. But on most of the limestone where we are talking about knee barring on tufas, it's more of a question of pain.
All right, y'all, quick break here to ask you a dumb question. Do you want to go out and climb with one of the best sport climbers in the world? Of course you do. That's why it's a dumb question. Well, now you can. Jonathan Segrist and his wife, nutrition therapist Shayna Savoy, are putting on an incredible 3 month immersive climbing clinic so you can help level up your performance both as a climber and to fuel yourself the right way to get to the top of the block or the chains. check out what they're offering here. Starting June 1st, this program is capped at a max of just 30 climbers, so it's super intimate, it's super immersive. You're going to get a masterclass on projecting, 4 Zoom courses with J-Star and 4 with Shayna, an in-person climbing clinic in Colorado with them, and a dream climbing trip to 10 Sleep, where you're going to put all the learnings to practice with your new coaches/besties. Holy smokes. The trip to 10 Sleep with them is worth the price of admission alone. I can't believe they're doing this. And if you hit that code below when you check out, you're going to get $300 off over at sharedair.com. Guys, this is pretty amazing. Do not 10 Sleep on this one. Nailed it. Let's get back to the interview. I'm curious, as you look at historical climbs versus new climbs, what your opinion is on the grading of those.
Depends so much on the style. So from the modern point of view, all like the vertical, really techy climbs, they would usually feel sandbagged. But those few climbs that are steep, like from the 80s, 90s, they don't feel sandbagged at all. But I think that's almost also because, I don't know, imagine being a rock climber in the 80s, almost all the routes were vertical, so most of the climbing that you were doing was vertical, so you were obviously really good in vertical climbing. But steep climbing, the climbing gyms didn't exist, so how should you train for them? So I think from the modern point of view, it would make sense to maybe reflect this and put it into the consideration into the grading. That means maybe some of the historical climbs that are more vertical and feels really, really hard, maybe upgrade. And I think then it would mostly equal out. From my experience, I can't really think of like super tough route for the grade, which is really steep and which is from the 80s, 90s. They are usually the same.
Maybe Hubble.
In Hubble, it's really, really complicated because there was like a shift in grading scale. So Ben Moon gave it 8C plus, and I think in the perspective of the 8Cs back then, like Edgincourt in Bukes, then in that case, Hubble is an 8C plus. But then Wolfgang Gillich established Action Direct, and he didn't grade it 8 and 9A, but he graded it 11 in UIAA grading system scale. But back then there was no grading conversion. Later on, the grading conversion of Action Direct instead of 8C plus got into 9A, which made the Hubble as an 8C plus really sandbagged.
Yeah.
But I think I think now as it is, there is less of a difference between 8C and 8C plus and 8C plus 9A than it should be.
Yeah, it's compressed.
I mean, people think that grading is not linear. I think it is. It is just getting subjectively harder and harder and harder to improve.
Got it.
Which is obvious, if you're a 100-meter sprinter, it's really easy to improve from 4 seconds to 3.5, but it's almost impossible to improve from 10 seconds to 9.5. Right. It's the same in climbing. But in particular, the difference between 8C and 8C plus and 8C plus 9A is maybe not as big as it should be. And I think it's mostly because this mess in the 80s for conversion between UIAA and...
Well, I think that's a perspective that I haven't heard, so thank you. I really appreciate, I think, how thoughtful that analysis is of those highest grades at the time. Hey, if you enjoyed this conversation here with the king, Adam Ondra, guess what? I talked with him for almost 2 hours on the podcast where he opened up and shared secrets to his training, nutrition, tactics, and mental game. He also shared some stories that I'd never heard before. It's so good. If you're serious about rock climbing, if you want to get better as a climber, I invite you to check out the podcast. You can listen to it for zero cost right there.